I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot and Prongs are proud to present the Marauder's Map.
If you succeed tonight, more than one innocent life may be spared.
Expecto Patronum!
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, I'm your host Dan, and we're back for another chapter of Prisoner of Azkaban. We're doing chapter 4, The Leaky Cauldron. Molly's back with us.
Hello.
And we were talking before we started recording, and Molly has a particular affinity for this chapter.
Yeah, I've just always loved this chapter. Like, I was so excited to be doing chapter 4 with you because this is one of those chapters, like, I've sat down and I was like, oh man, I remember reading this for the first time and just loving every minute of it, because who wouldn't want to have complete freedom running around Diagon Alley? Like, what a cool thing. I just remember too, like, sitting there, like, thinking how cool it was that he was, like, working on homework and getting free ice cream, and it was just a really heartwarming thing because Harry never really had freedom like this before.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's one of the things that stuck out to me too, was like, this is his first taste of real freedom.
Yeah.
Like, he can go wherever he want, well, mostly wherever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and he had money.
Yeah.
Which he talks about, it's like, he had to really check himself.
Right. I was like, what a responsible young man.
For 13? Oh my gosh.
Know.
I'm going into like half of these shops being like, I want that. I want this. So, I mean, props to Harry for the self-restraint.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. The other thing that popped out was free Sundays every half hour.
Yes.
I would be going back to school looking very different.
Right.
Like, free Sundays every half hour.
Well, considering he was just living with the Dursleys, I'm sure those Sundays probably made him look more normal.
Healthy. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I agree.
Yeah.
Just the idea of him being free at the Leaky Cauldron to just kind of, it's almost like you have an apartment. Like,
Yeah.
you're on, or you're going to college for the first time, right, and you're in your dorm or whatever, like, away, and you can do whatever you want.
You get your, like, your dining card, and you're like, oh,
Yep.
Man.
Yep.
I am not eating healthy now, Mom.
I love it. Yeah, I like this chapter too. I liked it for I liked it for a couple of different reasons. But speaking of the Diagon Alley part specifically, just seeing the shops, as a part of the Diagon Alley chapter that I love so much, is just seeing this world for the first time, and him going through all the shops and learning about gobstones.
Yeah.
Which I always forget what exactly gobstones is, but it's marbles. Basically, it's like a different set of marble game thing that squirt foul-smelling liquid at the other player's face. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that I would really love to partake in this game. I think child of 13. Let's see, my childhood, I was either playing with Pokemon cards, or do you remember Crazy Bones?
Yes.
Crazy Bones were a thing, which I guess could kind of be like gobstones, minus the foul-smelling liquid.
Yeah.
Pogs were a thing. That was earlier in my childhood. What else? Crazy stuff did we have?
Oh, man. See, all I remember are these bead animal things I used to make. I was a weird kid, Dan. I was not of the norm kid playing things, I guess.
Do you remember, like, the what were they called, like Tamagotchi thing, like
Yes.
the little animals that you had to like keep alive somehow?
Yeah, they banned those from our school because
did they?
Too many kids, like, during class, like, they'd be beeping and they'd be like, oh, it's mine, I gotta take care of my like Tamagotchi alien dude. Yeah, and they had, like, the nano kitties and nano puppies.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, we had some weird toys.
We had some weird ones.
Yeah.
Pokemon cards were eventually banned from my school.
Yeah.
Because too many kids were trading and kids would con other kids. It was a harsh life in like 6th, 7th grade. It was like a harsh time.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. Harry does stumble on something that catches his eye and almost makes him want to spend a fortune. He sees the newest, latest broom and, reads a description of it. Everybody's fawning over it. The store owner is like, oh, the Irish Quidditch team just bought a whole set of 7 of these. They're supposed to be in the World Cup coming up, which I have thoughts on, which is great. But he reads the description of the firebolt, and I think it can top like 150 miles per hour, it said.
Yeah, I actually underlined that because I'm like, holy cow. The firebolt has an acceleration of 150 miles an hour in 10 seconds.
Molly, how many times have you ever gone over 100 miles per hour in your car?
Absolutely never.
Not once?
Not once.
Maybe once for me. Maybe once. But I usually don't like going that fast, especially on, Chicago driving where we're...
Yeah.
No, that's probably not wise.
I freak out when I go 90, so...
Fair enough. 90 I have gone.
But I do drive fast, but not 150.
But 150. 150 is like professional race car drivers. But still.
No, not doing that.
The note that popped out to me about the firebolt was an unbreakable charm.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I was like reading it, and I'd posed a question probably when Harry got his Nimbus about like what really makes a broom that much better than the next.
Yeah.
It's a broom. There aren't many varieties of broom designs. And I think this chapter in the book kind of explains like what kind of makes it that way. Like an unbreakable charm would make it a little bit more expensive.
Right.
Or, and I get you could get some of the charms might wear off after a couple of years.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Or something like that. But things like I guess it would be like add-ons in your car.
Yeah.
Like, do you want the heated seats? Pay a little extra,
right. Yeah.
I'm assuming it's similar.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that popped out to me about the firebolt. I did like how it said, ask about the price.
Yeah, price on request.
Like, that's never a good sign.
Never.
I kind of want to know how much it is, though.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know how much that firebolt would cost.
Yeah.
Then he goes into another one of our very popular shops, Flourish and Blots. Great name for a bookstore.
Yeah.
And he goes up. The manager is already dreading it because there's a large cage full of the Monster Book of Monsters.
Yeah.
Those things are vicious.
Yeah.
2 of them caught another one and was ripping it apart.
Not nice.
Maybe you'd want to like keep those in separate areas.
Yeah.
Like, this is the type of book that would be bound in the restricted section.
Yeah.
Like, why are they being given to third years?
I know.
But once Harry tells the manager that he already has one, they move on to divination. And there was a description of some of the divination books. And it was, first of all, something caught his eye, and it was an omen of death.
Yeah.
And he was like, where do I recognize? I recognize that from somewhere, and he could never place it in this chapter. So we'll get there. But also it's like, oh yeah, there's different forms of divinations like palmistry. Okay. Crystal ball reading. Okay. Bird entrails. Have you ever heard of any kind of fortune telling through bird entrails?
I have not.
That's a new one for me.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that makes sense. But wait, what?
Yeah.
And then my favorite book of all time, The Invisible Book of Invisibility, is brilliant.
It is.
It's just brilliant. The guy ordered 200 copies and never found them.
Yep.
Brilliant. So also, do you first of all, is this a scam?
Oh, 100%.
100% a scam.
Yeah.
So you don't think that they're unloading 200 books Leave them there. And then some guy's just walking through and just runs into an invisible wall. That's not a thing?
Yeah.
Just complete scam.
Oh, total scam. Yeah. It reminds me, it's a tangent. It reminds me of this story I once heard where somebody bought an air guitar off eBay for $5,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Total tangent, I know, but
That's awesome.
I feel like that person that's selling the air guitar on eBay is selling the invisibility book.
Did they send him an envelope? Or like an empty box? Or how did
Probably.
they? I have so many questions about an air guitar. Did he also sell an invisible drum set? That'd be sweet.
That'd be awesome.
You can get a whole air band going.
Right?
Shout out to Scrubs. Anyway. Yeah, so that jumped out at me. I love the idea of an invisible book of invisibility.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Could also imagine like getting the book. You actually have an invisible book in your hands, and then you go to read it, and then you realize it's invisible. So eventually, after a good long time of Harry being in Diagon Alley and the Leaky Cauldron by himself, he's like wondering, like, he's seen Neville, he's seen a bunch of his friends, Dean and Seamus, and no Ron, no Hermione, no Weasleys. So what is going on? And then finally, like didn't they say like the last day?
Yeah.
The last day he finds both Ron and Hermione, which Ron is overjoyed at the fact that he blew up his aunt.
Yes.
Hermione is a little bit more Hermione-ish about it. But Ron says that he got a brand new wand, which was sorely needed.
Yes.
14 inches, willow, and unicorn hair. And Ron's telling him that, Scabbers is not feeling too well, and Hermione has a little extra gold left over from... No, in advance of her birthday in September.
Yes.
So they decide to go over to Magical Menagerie so Ron can get Scabbers a tonic and Hermione can maybe buy an owl.
Yeah.
The Magical Menagerie. I would love to look in there for a good long time.
Oh, yes.
I wonder how Newt feels about
Ooh.
like pet stores in general.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to get, Newt Scamander's ideas on the Magical Menagerie as far as having these things in cages or whatever. Where they got them from, who knows?
Right.
Anyway, let's focus on the positive, cool aspect of it.
Right.
Like
mice jumping rope.
Right. Like, yeah, the descriptions of like all the animals kind of obviously have innate magical powers or something to them that makes them a little bit more special.
Right.
Which leads me to something in the spoiler section, which we'll get there too.
Yeah.
But Scabbers isn't doing well, and you had a note on what you liked about Scabbers not doing well.
Yeah. Basically, the lady was like, bang him on the counter.
I'm gonna hope that's an English turn of phrase for just like put him on the counter.
Right.
I'm hoping they're not like put him on the counter.
Just bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Let's see how sick he is.
I read that too the same way. I'm like, that's aggressive.
Yeah.
That's probably just a British phrase that I'm like
Right.
going over my head.
Right.
But I had the same thought you did. Like,
Yeah.
That's aggressive.
I know. Like, just nonchalant, like, bang him on the counter.
I like how well while Ron is asking about Scabbers, the mice that were jumping rope over the other's tail suddenly stop, come over to the side, and like watch what's going on.
I know. I love that.
It's showing sign.
Yeah.
God, Molly, you and I get on these like sentient creatures rants.
I know. We do.
Clearly, they have a higher level of understanding than your normal rat.
Right.
Speaking of normal rat, Ron says Scabbers is just your normal common rat.
Yeah.
And she's like, interesting, because this type of rat should only live about like 3 years, give or take.
Right.
And clearly, if it was Percy's rat before Ron's, this thing has been alive for longer than 3 years, which
Right.
is a little questionable.
Right.
And then we have the appearance of a certain ginger cat.
Oh.
So
Yes.
ginger cat on the ginger hair, and then bounds and leaps towards Scabbers, and all heck breaks loose.
Mm-hmm.
And when they find Scabbers, Ron was like, "What was that?" And I love Harry's line of, "It was either a very large cat or quite a small tiger," and it's said in such a like meh
Yeah.
kind of way
Right.
that I'm like, Harry's he's finally becoming a little jaded to the whole magical world that he
Right.
could say that line so casually.
Right.
And B, it's just awesome that that line is even a plausible thing.
Yeah. It's definitely showing Harry's like quippy side.
That he's not even mean. I think he's like,
Yeah.
that's being like, it's a quick wit for sure, but he's
Yeah.
also very serious about that. He's like, could have been this.
Yeah.
Could also have been this.
Yep. We don't know.
One of my favorite lines from Harry, shockingly.
Yeah.
It just got me and made me laugh.
Yeah. Going back, I'm so hung up on this, but
Yeah.
going back to the rats that are jumping rope.
No.
For some reason, when I first read this, like, and it still sticks in my mind, I just pictured like the three blind mice.
I was gonna mention that
Yeah.
earlier too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's what my brain went to.
So we get them in threes. We get 2 Monster Book of Monsters ripping the third one.
Yes.
And here we get 2 mice playing jump rope with their tails with the third one.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just a very interesting kind of dynamic.
It is.
You would think the bookstore would be more like a bookstore and not an animal, and it's like really just flipped.
Right.
But I love
Yeah.
it. So, long story short, Hermione buys Crookshanks.
Yeah, sorry.
This
Tangent.
this ginger cat, and she shows up just utterly like in love with this cat, and Ron is immediately horrified
Yeah.
because the cat clearly assaulted him and tried to kill Scabbers.
Mhm.
So it's a wonderful beginning to Crookshanks and Ron's relationship.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's like one half of this chapter. The other half takes place at the Leaky Cauldron, where all of the Weasleys are.
Mhm.
They've all congregated and they're having this big dinner. And again, I just see it as such a wonderful thing that Harry and Hermione have just been so easily welcomed into this family that they're having this like massive family dinner,
Yep.
and Harry and Hermione are expected to be there because they're like, where else would you be? You're supposed to be here.
Right.
Like you're supposed to be part of this group, and it's so great. And then I just love the dynamic between Fred and George and Percy having their back and forths and them making fun. And then there was a line where they said a joke about Percy, and they said everyone but Percy and Mrs. Weasley laughed, meaning Arthur Weasley laughed,
Right.
which I just find great.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I just find it great.
Yes. Yeah, I love when, the twins are making fun of Percy for how he like
How he formally introduced himself to Harry.
And
There's some great words in there too.
yeah, it was like, how really corking to see you. Absolutely spiffing. Oh yeah, simply splendid to see you, old boy.
I like the corking.
Yes.
That was the word that got me.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah.
And then now I get Mrs. Weasley being all affronted by it because
Yeah.
she is insanely proud that Percy is head boy, which she should be proud.
Yeah.
It is an accomplishment. It does speak to Percy's talent and his brilliance and stuff like that. The fact that it's the second one in the family after Bill is an important thing. Gets on them for not being prefects,
Right.
which I love the response of like, why? That would take all the fun out of life.
Right.
It's just a good response.
Yeah. I just love how Mrs. Weasley is just so fiercely loyal and loving to each one of her children.
Yes, and it takes like a different type of love.
Yes.
To because they're all very the same because they're obviously the same family.
Right.
But at the same time, all of her children are vastly unique individuals.
Absolutely.
It's a really interesting family.
Yes.
I don't know. I think that's why the Weasley family it strikes a certain chord with everybody.
Yeah.
It's like the family that you kind of always want to kind of be a part of.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, speaking of the Weasleys and how close they are, that made it that much more shocking when Harry goes down to try to find the rat tonic, and he finds Mollie and Arthur in like a full-blown real argument
Yeah.
over, of all things, him. So it starts out being like an awkward moment. It's like, oh, should I really be here for this? And then it's like, wait a minute.
Right.
What? And it's an interesting argument that they're having, because there's essentially, you find out that not only is Sirius Black loose, not only is Sirius Black a threat, but Sirius Black is a threat to Harry specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And they outline a couple of reasons why. They mentioned that Sirius was muttering in his sleep for weeks or months or years about how he's at Hogwarts. He's at Hogwarts. He's at Hogwarts.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's taken this to mean Harry, and they think that Sirius is the second in command to Voldy and wants to right that wrong that was done to Voldy. So it's, which side of this argument do you take? They're arguing about, do we tell Harry that Sirius Black might be after him? Or do we, which is Arthur's side, to tell Harry? Or do we take Mrs. Weasley's side, where it's, no, we need to shelter him. He's living a happy life. Let him live his happy life.
I would tell him.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would tell him. If it were my kid, I'd tell him. I mean, I know they're not, it's not his parents, but I would want
They
to
clearly
know.
view him very closely as
Right.
if he were.
Right.
And I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think I would tell him. And I think Arthur makes a fabulous point that I don't think Molly can really argue with,
Right.
where he goes, Harry and Ron like to sneak off all the time.
Right.
They went to the Forbidden Forest twice.
Right.
This seems like something that we should tell them, so they're more aware of, if they do, they know that there's a real threat for them. And B, hopefully they won't. And they'll just, stick to a more conservative lifestyle at Hogwarts,
Right.
given the danger here.
Right.
That's a point that Molly doesn't really have an answer for, other than, well, Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Dumbledore is there.
Dumbledore and his many secret.
And all of his secrets. Dumbledore and all of his secrets are there.
Yes.
So that's essentially her rebuttal, is just Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Which Arthur doesn't really even argue all that much, but he's just like, I think he deserves this. So we agree. I think we're both on the Arthur bandwagon on this. Let us know which side of the argument you take.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting argument to just see Molly and Arthur kind of.
Yeah. As much as I love Mrs. Weasley, there's so many times that I'm like, I agree with Arthur so much, though.
Arthur, we keep saying this. One of these days, we're going to have a deep dive on Arthur.
We have to.
Because
We gotta show him
he's
some love.
such an underrated character.
Yeah.
And
He is.
we promise we will have a deep dive on Arthur on this podcast.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
deserving.
Yeah. There's ways that he kind of reminds me of my dad. So,
Yeah?
Yeah. So,
I'm interested. What ways?
yeah. My dad was always like really calm and chill. And I feel like he had a really good sense of humor.
Okay.
And Arthur is very much the same way, I feel like. Like, he's very level-headed. Yeah, like, definitely the level-headed humor, Like, my dad would have laughed at the Percy jokes. Like, if,
It's what? It's funny.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's, yeah. I think Arthur embodies a father that most people would want to have, of just like the laid back, but still like fatherly.
Yes.
you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not like he's giving up on those responsibilities to be like one of the boys.
Yeah.
He's still the dad. And you see it in a couple of different points where even Fred and George have their respect for Arthur. Like,
Right.
you know, we goof off all the time, but, you know, if he says not to do something, then we shouldn't do it.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah, I love Arthur.
Yeah, he's a great
character.
Yeah.
Before we get to the spoiler section, I got to shout out the sassy mirror in Harry's Leaky Cauldron room.
Yes.
Which early in the chapter, he's like trying to pat down his hair, and she's like, "Oh, that's a losing battle."
Yes.
And then right before he goes to bed, he utters out loud, which is just a great moment in itself, of "I'm not going to be murdered." Which, what life are you living that you feel the need to, right before you go to bed, say the phrase out loud, "I'm not going to be murdered"?
Yeah.
That's a life that you're living. But then I love the mirror just chirping in. That's the spirit, dear. Just the sassy level of the mirror, top notch. Top notch.
Stay positive.
And I'm just like, oh, this is an interesting chapter. Oh my gosh, this is so intense. And then I just laugh out loud at the end of the chapter because it's such just a funny line that caught me.
Right.
Got me. But anyway. Yeah, so with that, I think we're going to head over to the spoiler section where we got a couple of fun things to talk about. So stick with us, and we'll be right back.
You foul, loathsome, evil little cockroach!
All right, so we're back with the spoiler section. And again, hope you're liking this break sound that we're having.
It's awesome.
We should probably transition in and out of the break sound because it's very harsh.
It is abrupt.
I will try to remember that. I promise.
My brain kept thinking, like, it's just like magic. And then, like, that came out and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. I just wanted to come back to Crookshanks for a second. And I don't know if you remember, since we're introduced to Crookshanks here, I figured this was an apt moment to bring this up. But I don't know if you remember pre-book 7 fan theories that would fly from every... This was sadly before Twitter. So,
Ooh, I may not know this.
yeah, there were fan theories flying all over the place about everything.
Yeah.
And people were like pouring through the books to find like any kind of detail or hidden thing or whatever that might lead them to answers in book 7.
Yeah.
And there were 2 involving cats. One was that Mrs. Norris clearly has something going on because she can't have that connection with Filch if she wasn't some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Like an animagus or whatever.
Yeah.
So people were thinking, oh, Mrs. Norris is the key.
Yeah.
Well, other people were like, Crookshanks. Crookshanks is definitely a key to something. She's got to be more than just a normal ginger cat.
Yeah.
Because if she's in the magical menagerie, there's something about that cat, right?
Yeah.
So people started theorizing, like, oh, is Crookshanks an animagus? Is Crookshanks this? Or is Crookshanks... Can Crookshanks... Is there a way that that cat recognizes a fellow animagus in Scabbers or what have you? Like, there were all these theories flying around. I don't know if you remember any of them.
No.
But back when I was perusing MuggleNet and Veritaserum and all of these Harry Potter websites, there was a lot of Crookshanks threads. The key to Deathly Hallows is Crookshanks.
Well, I'm going to throw this in. Crookshanks is actually Aunt Petunia.
People aren't going to know this, so I apologize, but that was a very Brian take right there.
It was. I did it on purpose.
Fair enough.
By the way, enough about Crookshanks. Let's talk about those mice again.
Those 3 mice. Molly's a fan.
Even though they're rats. I'm so sorry.
For those that aren't in that inside joke between Molly and I, Brian is actually our manager at the clinic that we work at. And he likes to, I guess, he's jealous of our conversations about Harry Potter.
He is.
And he wants to be in on these.
Yes.
And he knows more than he lets on.
He does.
He's a bigger nerd than he lets on.
Yes.
But he'll throw out some random theories just to like poke our buttons a little bit.
Right.
And they're always hilarious.
They're
So
phenomenal.
they're usually good. My favorite one is that the real reason the Dursleys hate Harry so much is because very clearly James had an affair with Petunia at one point.
Yes.
And Dudley is actually James and Petunia's son. That was right on.
Top notch.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
I can see Anna's blood boiling.
I know. Yeah, right.
Anna, your thoughts, please.
Yes. Oh, that was good times. Anyway, bringing it back to this chapter.
Crookshanks.
Crookshanks. Yes, a lot of the fan theories were about Crookshanks and how the cat had a big part to play in book 7. Spoiler alert, did not. But still fun to talk about anyway.
Yes.
Another thing that they kind of drop in, which I had forgotten about completely, was the Irish Quidditch team and the World Cup.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, they talk about this here. And then they basically bring it back around at the start of Goblet of Fire, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So I like how they kind of seeded that there. I wonder if she just put that in and then was like, no, you know what? I'm going to make that a bigger thing.
Right.
I could see her doing that, kind of just throwing it, because maybe, I don't know. I'd have to really do the math and go back if there was a World Cup going on that year, and maybe she's like, I'll have the Irish as a favorites to win the World Cup, and then she's like, hey, maybe I should do something with this or whatever.
Right, yeah.
So that was kind of interesting that they just have Irish in the World Cup.
Yeah.
And they obviously win it next year in the Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
In controversial fashion.
They do.
But they use the firebolts to do it. So
they do.
So there's that. And then the other big spoilery thing that we wanted to talk about in this chapter, it was just a thought I had when Harry recognizes that there's, or he thinks he recognizes the omen of death in this book cover. And why he recognizes it is obviously he's seeing Sirius in the alleyway as this big hulking black dog. So my question to you then is, do you think Sirius took this animagus fully knowing that it was an omen of death?
I had that thought that, like, maybe he did do that on purpose because it's very similar. But I don't know. That's a really good question, you know?
Obviously, there's practical reasons.
Yeah.
He would want a large,
right.
dog-like figure
right.
as his animagus, which we can get into down the road. But I gotta imagine, like, little Sirius Black sitting in his divination class,
right,
being like, oh my gosh, grim. You know what? I'm just gonna become one. Like, yeah. And it's, I feel like it would be a very him move to just be like, well, if you're gonna turn into a, werewolf, then I'm gonna be a grim, and
right.
which then makes James's, stag like a
like, and then of course another spoiler, Mr. Pettigrew.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's Scabbers.
He is Scabbers. So, yes, you have two.
The rat of the group.
The rat of the group. Yeah. We've talked a little bit before in spoiler sections previous about how weird it's kind of been with the chapters of like, yeah, Ron put Scabbers on his lap or whatever. And you're like, he just put a grown man, which is a little weird. But the whole thing with Wormtail, Peter Pettigrew, Scabbers.
Yes.
The whole thing is weird. Yes. He's not a normal dude.
No.
He's a little off. But yeah, we have a lot of Marauders stuff to get into and talk about, and the dynamic of this friend group as a whole. And
I'm going to leave that to Anna.
And she will gladly grasp that opportunity.
Yes.
The thought just popped into my head. It's like, it'd be interesting if, you know, a young Sirius Black was like, I'm just gonna
Be a Grim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like that thought.
I like it too. I wonder how, like, they never actually mention in this chapter, like, how, or last chapter, about how big that dog, like, actually is. Is it just like an Irish Wolfhound kind of big?
That's what I was just
Or is
about
it like
to say.
abnormally, like, insanely big?
No, I think it's probably like a version of an Irish Wolfhound.
I could see it. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, like, people would think that werewolves are, like, super, super big.
Right.
They're probably just, like, man-sized
Yeah.
wolves.
Yeah.
So a big dog, like an Irish Wolfhound, should be able to
Yeah.
handle that. But that just kind of make me think, like, why did James pick a stag? Anna's going to just,
Oh, she'll explain
Kill me
it
now.
all. Yeah.
but it does make me think now, like, okay, werewolf, got
Right.
it. Large dog, got it.
Right.
Even scabbers, like, they needed something like,
Yeah.
go in small, get in through doors, windows. I think specifically they wanted him to get the knot on the Whopping Willow.
Right.
So things like that,
Right.
that makes sense.
Right.
Stag, like, it's cool.
It is.
And believe me, large adult male deer specifically
Mhm.
are very, very dangerous.
Yes.
And they could mess you up.
Yes.
Not saying that. It's just like, stag? Just why a stag specifically? But
Right.
there's a lot of large animals. I wonder just why he picked that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. I'm sure Anna has an answer for us.
I'm sure she does. I'm gonna leave it to her.
This is why, you know, as we're talking and we're just spitballing things, we just come up with like random questions. We haven't researched that at all.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably an actual answer somewhere.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's just a thought. Let us know what you think. If Sirius is actually a Grim, not just a large dog. So, what else did you have? Have anything else for this chapter? Or any just general thoughts? Do you want to go back to the mice again, Molly?
I do. Let's go back to the mice.
I figured you weren't done talking about the three mice.
No, you know what? Like, there's got to be something there.
Oh, I have a thought for you. Actually, now that I look at it,
Hmm.
Ron's new wand.
Yeah,
His old wand was a hand-me-down wand. Yeah.
believe so.
So if that wand didn't choose Ron, could that be maybe a reason that Ron wasn't maybe the most adept with spells
Ooh.
early? And now that he got his new wand, presumably from Ollivander, and presumably it chose him, do you think Ron's uptick in magical ability from here on
Yes.
is because of this?
Yes.
Like, it's a simple, easy fix like that?
Yeah, I do. Now that you bring that up,
Yeah,
I'm convinced of it.
that's the other thing that got me in this chapter was like, oh, Ron's new wand. Wait a minute. Ron seems
Yeah.
much more competent magically.
Right.
I mean, obviously, book 2 was, the reason was his wand was
Broken.
broken.
Right.
But it's not like book 1, he was particularly, like,
Yeah.
adept with magic.
Mm-hmm.
He just seemed pretty okay.
Right.
But I feel like he progresses more naturally
Yeah.
and just better in his magical talent.
Yeah.
Now that he's probably got his own actual wand.
Yeah. That's good. I like that.
Yeah,
You thought of that.
it just caught at me. I was like, his wand was hand me down, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it just didn't ever really like click for him.
Yeah. Wand magic is so fascinating. I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd be into it.
going back to, because obviously all of the wand magic really gets intense with like Elder Wand specifically.
Right.
And at one point, well, technically Voldy never has the Elder Wand. Like, he has the actual, I guess, physical wand.
Yeah, but it's never really truly his.
Correct.
Right.
But Grindelwald and Dumbledore both had actual wand and actual power.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you, and this is a conversation we can have for later too, but since we're here, how much do you think that actually added to their magical ability? Like Grindelwald, for example, all of his magical skill
Yeah.
in Crimes of Grindelwald and Secrets of Dumbledore, like his protection spells, for example.
Yeah.
I'm sure he knows powerful protection spells.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's getting pelted with like 30 spells from presumably 30 of the most adept wizards in the world at that time, is that all him and his talent, or is Elder Wand obviously adding a good portion of that?
Or does the fact that you think that you have the strongest wand create more power?
Like a belief kind of
Like
system?
a belief, like a confidence,
Could be part of it too.
you know? Like
Yeah.
to truly feel like, okay, I have this magic.
Well, to your point, bringing it back to Ron,
Right.
now that he's got a brand new wand, his inner confidence might be boosted.
Exactly.
He's like, now I can do Wingardium Leviosa. Like, I got this.
I got this, guys.
So, I don't know. That's a good point too.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's our wand lore talk for the evening.
Yes.
But I'm glad I remembered to bring that up because that was a thought I had during this chapter.
Yeah.
That's,
Now I want to do a deep dive into wand magic.
well, you'll be on again.
so.
So, wand magic, yeah, we were talking about how like we can do a series of podcasts just on Dumbledore. We could probably do a full podcast on Arthur Weasley.
Yep.
We could do a full podcast on wand lore and all that kind of fun stuff. Your deep dive on Voldy last time was great.
I very much enjoyed Anna's World War II.
Did you?
Oh, I did. I thought that was very well done.
That was right up her alley.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it when guests deep dive. It's always great.
Yeah.
Never disappoints. So anyway, I think that probably wraps it up for this one, huh?
Yeah. That's all I got.
Okay. So we will probably end it here. Thank you all for listening. Again, check us out on Twitter and Instagram to interact with us and let us know all of your thoughts. Let us know if Sirius Black is a Grim. Let us know if Ron's new wand is everything he needed and more.
Don't forget about the mice.
Don't forget about the 3 mice in the magical menagerie. Molly's favorite mice or rats or whatever you want to call them.
They're rats. I'm just calling them mice.
She just likes to make the analogy with 3 blind mice. It's fine.
I'm sorry.
And on that note, we will call it a chapter. Please join us for chapter 5. And I think Elizabeth is scheduled for chapter 5 and chapter 6. So,
Yay.
yeah, so it'll be fun times. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hogwarts a Pod.